Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host for today. Well, it is Friday, November the 1st, 2024, and we are here at the briefing today bringing you information that we believe is timely and is actionable in your hands. That's our goal here on the briefing every single month. The reason why we get together is because we want to look for those opportunities where you and I can work together, where we can rally around the things that we believe in. We can add our voices together to speak to specific issues. Well, today, I'm going to make sure that you are resourced and ready to go out there and advance the principles that undergird the things that we believe, the principles of the four pillars. So glad you could join us today. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's take a look at the agenda. Again, for those of you who show up right on time, you get to hear the agenda. So let's have a look at it. First of all, on the agenda today, we're going to do a quick recap of the elections that have been going on, and just a couple, and I'm not going to go through the details. You can go and find the details. There's lots of people that get into the weeds on analysis, electional analysis. I'm just going to remind us as to where we're at and what our focus is as we come out of elections. Our real focus, though, long-term are the elections ahead of us. So that's horizon training. If you'll remember, we're looking out on the horizon. So we've got elections in front of us. Okay, we will take a quick look at what just happened, but that's about it. All right, I also wanted to let you know that here on the National Leadership Briefing, we are here to serve you, but we also serve others elsewhere. And so I'm going to bring to your attention some of the other places that we serve, that I serve, and where we bring our influence. We want to actually bring the principles of the four pillars to the attention of other organizations and other entities. So I'm going to tell you about some of those places today because I want you to know that these are trusted resources. If we're in relationship with them here, you can go to these places as well. So I'm going to give you places that you can go for various other bits of information and show you those things today really quickly. I'm also going to be introducing you here on the briefing to two what we call subject matter experts. One of them is a subject matter expert in the area of Ekklesia convocations. That is the church as government coming together to actually decree and declare and to actually act as a government in the area of prayer. And as you know, if you remember or reminded, or if I could remind you about the wheel, that big wheel, and I'll show you it again later on, but we have a wheel that actually has on the outside of everything we do the need for us to keep everything wrapped in strategic prayer. So that Ekklesia convocation, the church coming together and praying, that is an important part of what we do here. We're also going to be talking to somebody who is an expert in relationship building. And you and I both know, if you've seen the U training video, one of the NLB essential videos on our YouTube channel, you know that the relationships that we build with others to work together with them to advance the things that we believe in is really important. So I've got someone to introduce you to that can help you bring resources to you to build those relationships with other people. All right. We're also going to be bringing to your attention a tool to communicate regarding a piece of legislation that is in the House. It's actually in the Senate right now, Bill C-293. There's a bill that we're going to be talking about today really quickly, and I'm going to share with you a video in the post-briefing notes you're going to be able to share with other people. And then I'm also going to be telling you a little bit about what we're going to be doing next month. I want to foreshadow our next month's briefing because I want to urge you and encourage you to bring friends to the next briefing. Remember, the way we grow our influence is by adding voices to ours. You're out there building those relationships we were talking about earlier on, building those relationships with people, but bringing them into relationship with us so that when it comes to time for us to speak to things from a national perspective, we have a much larger voice and we have more influence. So anyway, I hope that's enough that we can jam into the hour for you. We always want to make it worth your while. We're going to be moving fast, but if you get the post-briefing notes and you're registered for the briefing, then you will definitely have that stuff to follow up on after the briefing. All right, so let's watch this video here to get things started. And remember, it is November, so I'm wearing my poppy today for a reason, because we here on the National Leadership Briefing, for those who have paid the ultimate price, who have sacrificed everything so that we can be free here in the nation of Canada, we remember them. So right back after this video.
Once every year, the 11th month, on the 11th day at the 11th hour, we stand in unity to commemorate the end of World War I and to honor the great sacrifice of those who fought to preserve our freedoms. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row. O Canada, are you still a country worth dying for? Do we honor our fallen heroes? What were their hopes, dreams, and aspirations? Did they believe that we should be free to raise our children the way we want? Did they give their lives to defend our right of belief and freedom of religion? Did they consider Canada to be a place that would protect the citizens, especially the vulnerable? Was freedom truly worth dying for? That we should not be enslaved by massive debt heaped upon our children? Yes, these freedoms were worth dying for. Today, we continue to honor those who serve our country, lest we forget and fall victim to a tyranny that is eager to rise once again. Yesterday's freedoms were worth dying for. Do we now call them privileges only for them to be taken away? Oh Canada, what is freedom worth today? Lest we forget and no longer stand on guard. Do we wear poppy while paving a road of oppression right through Flanders fields? No. We wear poppy because we remember them. We stand with their brothers and sisters in arms, and we honor them by preserving the freedoms that they fought to preserve. World War I was deemed the war to end all wars, but we know this was not the last of wars. To this day, brave men and women take a stand, and we stand with them. We stand on guard with those who choose to sacrifice their well-being to preserve our freedoms. We don't forget why we wear poppy while we're wearing a poppy. We remember. Come on, Canada, now is the time more than ever. Stand up and wear your poppy proud, lest we forget.
Okay, now that video we're going to have in the post-briefing notes for you. That video with November the 11th coming up, Remembrance Day, we want to make sure that that's available to you. If you want to download that video and you want to share it online, if you want to share it with your pastor and your church family, if it's something that you'd like to share in church, feel free. Everything that we provide you here on the briefing, anything that we produce online, it's all public domain. There's no paywall, there's no trademarks, you can use everything. You can change it, you can edit it, you can alter it, you can remanufacture, call it your own. I don't care. Just get it out there. If it serves you in your sphere of influence, feel free. It's open there for you. Okay, so we're going to have that in a downloadable format for you in the post-briefing notes. I should actually mention, too, if you're looking at this on the social media platforms and you're not registered for the National Leadership Briefing, please register at nlbcanada.ca. That's nlbcanada.ca. That way you get future post-briefing notes. But if you're just watching this video on YouTube or on one of our social media channels later, and you want that video, send me an email at president@familyaction.ca. That's president@familyaction.ca. That's how you get in touch with me, and I would be happy to send you a downloadable link to that video to share in your churches. All right, let's take a look at the elections. Let's go West Coast to East Coast. And again, we're going fast because we're not going to be spending a lot of time, but things that we are thinking about. I want you to know, we are here in the province of British Columbia, razor thin margins on the election. NDP came out on top. This is a party that overall, pretty much you could say, does not share our views and values on many issues. And some people might just go, oh man, we lost British Columbia. Okay, you know what? We're not in it to win it and lose it. That's not the way we evaluate. It's how much influence we have exercised during an election period in anticipation of the next election and the road leading up to the next election and in the next election. So we're always like, it's about influence. How much influence do we have? And so what I wanted to encourage you to do is, as we leave an election like that, where the NDP government is now in control in the province of British Columbia, what do? What's our response? Well, you can immediately exercise influence after an election that you lose by praying for the leaders that won. So pray for David Eby, pray for the premier of the province, pray for the people that he puts in his cabinet, pray for government that they would make good and godly decisions. That's something you can do right away. And then begin the work of preparing for the next election. Now, how do you do that? We're always promoting that here on the briefing, is gather people around your ideas, become a magnet, use the principles of the four pillars. That's the four pillars of a parental authority, right of belief, freedom of religion being protected and respected, protecting the vulnerable with good laws and policies, and finally, of course, not burying our children in debt. Those things, the principles, gather people around you, build a coalition, and so that you have a team of people moving into the next election. And I don't mean a team that becomes a political machine. It's whatever your call is. If you're called to prayer, build a team of prayers leading up to the next election. If you're called to mobilize yourself into business, go build a team of people that rally around the same things, the principles in business, and maybe you're somebody that's going to be providing finances to the next candidate. Maybe you want to get engaged in the process of discovering who the next candidate is, whatever it is, but you pray for whoever won, then you begin the work of building that coalition of support moving into the next election. So that's British Columbia. Yeah, okay, you could call a loss. I say, okay, that's where we're at. Let's make it a win, if you're going to use the win-loss thing. Second thing, we're looking at Saskatchewan. Somebody might say, hey, Scott Moe, fantastic, we won. And then they might turn around and go back to their lives. Nope, that's not what we do here on the National Leadership Briefing. Scott Moe has a party of people with a whole wide range of beliefs. And so if you're in Saskatchewan and you don't know what to do after an election that you win, I would say, let's get on our knees and pray. God, we have a leader who's willing to stand up. What's my part in supporting him? Or is there anything I can do to add value to what they're doing to maybe perhaps bring issues further and deeper into the hearts of the people of Saskatchewan? How can I participate in what's next? So seek the Lord. Find out what it is that he wants you to do. If you're in Saskatchewan, you've still got work to do. So don't abandon the playing field and just go, great, Scott, take care of it. That's not how it works. We got to stay engaged in those processes after what we would call perhaps a win. All right. You also have in New Brunswick, you have New Brunswick here, really a bit of a heartbreaker there. We had a Premier Higgs, who was willing to stand up, and he was willing to actually go to the toe-to-toe with anybody who questioned parental authority. He was somebody that we really on the briefing really appreciate. And he lost. And he lost by like less than 300 votes. I mean, it was a absolutely painful when you see an election where there's a loss and you do a whole forensic review as to how you lost, and you find out that some of those things maybe you could have done differently and better, and maybe that loss didn't have to happen. Well, you don't just hang around in that place of mourning. I mean, there's obviously going to need some time for us to recuperate, and to lick our wounds, so as to speak, until we heal up. But you know what? We learn a lot. Like, the intelligence that you gather from a loss is valuable intelligence. So what we learned there is that if you are a church family member in New Brunswick, for instance, especially in Premier Higgs' riding, let me give you an example. So he lost by less than 300 votes, but there were churches of 1,500 people in that same riding that did not participate and engage in the election. Now, I'm not condemning them. I'm just saying is that just they don't realize, they maybe don't understand that, hey, when there is that much on the line, this was the Premier's province's seat in the legislature of New Brunswick. So whenever there's that higher level of leader with higher level influence, you're going to see a massive amount of resistance come against them, not only in the political realm, but also in the spiritual realm. So in New Brunswick, in his riding, they had a massive voter turnout. There was a massive wave of people that were rallied by people other than those that share our views and values, that they got to engage in the election. So they brought their guys to the election, and we refused to talk about politics in our church on our side. And so we lost by less than 300 people. Yeah, I mean, there's a lesson to be learned there, right? And then, of course, Faytine. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share a message from Faytine that she posted online. I'm going to share this in the post-briefing notes for you. I want you to hear this. Honestly, I told Faytine myself, I said, we could teach a masterclass, Faytine, on the grace and poise and perfect execution of how you can gracefully conclude an election that you do not win. And she did not win in New Brunswick, and it was heartbreaking, yes. But I'll tell you, she's all class all the time and such a pro. And I want you to check the post-briefing notes, because I want you to see the video that she put out after taking that loss. So really a lot to learn there. And of course, if we're talking about elections, We've got the Nova Scotia election that actually is on right now, really. They actually opened up the polls on the 30th. So, I mean, you've got a Nova Scotia election going on right now. If you're in the province of Nova Scotia, why don't you say to all your church leaders, hey, did you know what just happened in New Brunswick? Do we want that to happen here? You know, I mean, that's really, I don't think that there's a better opportunity for you to learn from your mistakes than if you're in Nova Scotia looking at the New Brunswick election, because that was super important piece of information to gather from that election. So anyway, so those are the elections. Of course, we've got the federal election coming up on the horizon, and we're going to talk more about that. So that's how we do elections here. We do it that way. We start planning for the next one and take note of what's happening around us for sure. But we want to know where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing as individuals and corporately during an election and leading up to an election. Remember that. That's the key. All right. So here, the people that we serve right after this quick video here, we're going to come back and I'm going to introduce you really quickly. We're going to be moving fast today. I want you to see other people we serve so you can see where you can plug in and get good information. And you know, if I'm serving them here on the briefing, then they are aligned with your views and values and my views and values. Okay. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for your time. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Okay, welcome back. Let's get on with the list of people that we serve, organizations we serve, where we serve. And the reason why I want to share this with you again, reminding you, is because I carry with me, as an individual citizen, I carry with me a desire to advance the principles that undergird these four pillars. So when I am actually out in the community, when I'm out seeing opportunities where I can exercise my influence on places that I could serve, I'm open to hearing any opportunities to do it, because I'm going to bring the four pillars with me. And that is me looking for others that share my views and values, that perhaps we can all work together in the future on a national coalition issue of some kind. So I'm happy to serve. I'm wide open all the time, but let's get right into it. I'm going to go through a bunch of different organizations. I'll set it up as tabs on my computer here for you. But know that you don't have to know the web addresses. I'm going to put all the web addresses in the post-briefing notes for you, and then you'll be able to just do quick links and see where it is. And I'm encouraging you, by the way, anybody that if I'm serving them, again, you could feel completely comfortable getting into a relationship with these people. They are vetted. These are only people that are vetted that I'm bringing forward to you. Okay, let's have a look here. I'm going to share my screen with you now. All right. First of all, we have Canada Family Action. Of course, I am the president and executive director of this organization. Just so you know, let's be clear, that's our organization. That is the Canadian Registered Not-for-Profit. So if you want to support the work that we do, go to this Make a Difference tab here on the website, right at the top corner here. Make a difference, and you can become a partner of Canada Family Action by clicking there. Okay, let's move on. Again, we've got the National Leadership Briefing website. You'll also see me here, and we have relationships with other people through this part of our organization, and you can also register here, as you can see, for the next National Leadership Briefing. We also serve Fayteen TV. Fayteen has a television program, and it's actually on 9 different networks, I think. We actually help here. I help there as a guest host on Fayteen TV. And so you can go there and you can actually see issues that affect Canadians. So the whole show is all about bringing to your attention different issues from a faith perspective that impact our lives as Canadians. So I would encourage everyone to go to that website that's in the post-briefing notes. As a matter of fact, I'll also encourage you to download the app on your iPhone. You can actually download Faytine TV onto your iPhone, and you can get notification whenever there's a new show that's coming out. And just so you know, we were in the studio just a short time ago, and we recorded some pretty good shows. So I think you might want to get that sooner than later. All right, what's next? The Canadian Firewall. This is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, been going for 5 years now. This is a firewall of prayer. This is a continuous Zoom call, and we've had the National Director, Bill Olson, on before on the Canadian Firewall talking about that. But I want you to know where you can find me and see me serving them is every single Wednesday morning. That's Wednesday morning each week at 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 a.m. Eastern time. If you go to the Canadian Firewall website and you click to pray and you come on the call, or you go on the YouTube channel and you can see it on YouTube, you will see a panel of people who are all together looking to help you and encourage you in directing your prayer for the week ahead. So that's where I am. I'm usually there every Wednesday. Well, some Wednesdays I'm not going to be there, but yeah, most Wednesdays I'm there. I really, really love serving that organization. Next is the Family Dream Institute, and they have a project called the Mighty Man Network. And so I'm on the leadership team of a group called the Mighty Man Network, and it's led by this wonderful couple that actually runs the Family Dream Institute. And actually, here, let me show you a picture of them. They're awesome. Here, look at that. There they are right there. Look at that. Look at that. Neil and Annette Campbell, amazing couple. But anyway, on this website that I'm going to share with you, you're going to find resources for parents, teachers, and pastors, but you're also going to find the Mighty Man Network. And this is, if you're a man out there right now and you're not in relationship with other men and you need support and you're looking for help and you want to get together with the guys, we have a fantastic system here and program in the Mighty Man Network. Love to share it with you. So go to the website. It'll be in the post-briefing notes today. Totally recommend them. Also, remember, we're also in local churches. So if you might actually have one of our Citizen Action Group ministries in a local church, or a Citizen Action Group ministry, that you have in your church, and we just serve you. We just do whatever we can to provide you with information to help you build it, run it. But we also have, this is a kind of a starting point for citizen action groups in local churches. So that's where we are as well. We're also helping to build right now something called the Rebuilders Network. Now, we've featured this before, but I'm going to put this in the post-briefing notes today, the website, because this is all about bringing together subject matter experts and strategic resource providers into coalitions to focus on very specific things. Like we might have a coalition on homelessness, we might have one on drug addiction, we might have one on advancing biblical worldview. But this is the idea of identifying individuals with specific gifts, talents, callings, bringing them together in coalitions, working collaboratively together on specific issues. So this is Rebuilders Network. Love to share that with you. That's like a flyover. I know that's fast, but I want you to know that like me, I'm encouraging you get out there too. But for now, if you want to just go out and take a look at sort of some of the places where we serve, you will find friends there. You will find people who share our views and values. You will find people that we are in relationship with. And of course, we're going to be talking about the importance of that in just a bit on the briefing as well. So I hope that is helpful for you. Check the post-briefing notes for all those details, and let's keep in touch with those people around us. Let's build those relationships. They are very important. All right, we're going to come back right after this, and we're going to actually take a look at the last Transformer Zoom call that we hosted. It was a fantastic event, but you know what? We rushed pretty fast by it, and I'm bringing this back into our attention here because it's really important that we don't miss what just happened. If you weren't on the last Transformer Zoom call, then I'm going to make sure you've got it in the post-briefing notes. You've got to see this, especially if you're called to prayer. And if you see the church as a government, then you're going to want to actually be aware of what took place on this last Transformer Zoom call. So we're bringing a pastor back on, and he's going to walk through this with us. Thanks so much. Okay, we're going to come right back after this message.
It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors.
You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Okay, that gave me a chance to catch my breath and calm down a bit. So I'm gonna slow it down a bit here. So we had a national Transformer Zoom call. One of our Transformer Zoom calls for those of you with a heart for your local community, for those of you who want to serve locally, who want to be equipped locally. We have a community transformation council committee that we encourage people to form in their local churches and work collaboratively with others, with marketplace leaders and with municipal government leaders, and all coming together and build those relationships so that you can meet the needs of your community. And we want to be a resource provider. So the project that I'm working on with the wonderful group of people from the United States and Canada have recently hosted one of those Transformer Zoom calls, and it was on Ekklesia convocations, this strategic prayer initiative. So I'm bringing the pastor on, Pastor Bill Zwartbol, who was on that call back, just to talk about what it was that took place. And then I'm going to include in the post briefing notes the actual Transformer Zoom call, that a copy of it that you might have missed if you weren't on the last call. So that's what we're doing here today, is we're bringing him back because it was so important what took place. I don't want to have anybody miss it. Okay, let's bring him on right now. Well, hey, Bill, thanks so much for making the time to come back to the National Leadership Briefing. We don't do this very often, where we take a look at something that we've already done in the past and bring it back into the present. But you and I have talked about this. This is important stuff. Wouldn't you agree?
Very, very important. It is a changer in the community if you understand the authority we have with Jesus on the throne and him working through us as his government representatives.
Absolutely. And last October the 10th, and this is what we're talking about here today, is there were a lot of people that were joined us on the call. We made the invitation last month. You and I got together. We did the promotion video. And a matter of fact, for anybody who didn't see the promo video, even, I'm going to include that in the post briefing notes again, where Bill and I talk about what was going to be happening on October the 10th. But we had the event on October the 10th. You and Jennifer came on the call and you shared about the Ekklesia convocation that you held in your home, in your city. And you know what? We just got that sense, Bill, like there was a lot more there than we had imagined there was going to be there. The mine was deeper than we were able to dig in that 1 hour. But there's a lot of people that missed that first hour. So give them a sense. I mean, we're going to obviously include the whole episode, that whole series that we did. We're going to include that segment, but just give people an idea. If you don't know what an Ekklesia convocation is, you don't know what you covered during that hour, give me the Coles notes just to bring them up to speed. So then you and I can take them someplace after that.
Sure. So I think I would have to start with even the word Ekklesia. It's been some years now, but coming to discover that the word church in our English Bibles is a very, very poor translation of the original Greek. The Greek word is Ekklesia, and the definition, the briefest definition, most concise definition I can give it, is called out to govern, because typically the church would say we are the called out ones. But it is framed after when the Romans took over from the Greeks. The wisdom was they kept the government that the Greeks had put in place, and Ekklesia was a secular term, and the church has made it. Church is religious. So what it was that there was a local government made up of you had to be 30 years old in order to qualify, and you establish policy and you implement it in your community. So the closest comparison today would be our local city councils. So think of you being in city council, called to establish policies, public policy, the laws, and then seeing them activated in your community. So an Ekklesia convocation really is a legal assembly of kingdom government people who understand their authority, and they seek to establish kingdom principles where currently or contrary these are being violated. So we are, binding and loosing, the Matthew 16 passage. We, the binding is forbidding and the loosing is permitting. So we, for instance, a very common or practical one is we forbid abortion. We permit the life of the unborn. And it's done with legal terminology. It's making decrees and declarations. And so in a very quick nutshell, that's an Ekklesia convocation. But the key is understanding that we are government representatives, as Jesus told us in Matthew 16:18. And in the context there, he talks of, I'll give you the keys. So we need the keys in space and time. What are the scriptures applicable to this situation at this given time? So it's a strong reliance on the Holy Spirit to help us navigate through the word, the keys that God has given us.
Right. And I'm so glad that you started there, because that government posture, when you approach the Ekklesia convocation, when you enter into that, is absolutely key. It's absolutely key to be standing in authority as a government when you proceed. Now, what you did in your city, you told the story during the October 10th event. And again, I'm going to include it in the post-briefing notes. For those of you who registered for the briefing, you always get that email after, and you're going to get not only a link to where you can find that segment, that event that we held on the 10th, and with the full video, but you're also going to get resources that go along with that. But for just to move people to that next stage, which is why we're doing this today, is that you held an event in your city that you described during this event. You brought evidence that it impacted your city, and there was positive results, and that the lives of citizens were improved, and that your neighbor and your community prospered as a result of it. But there's going to be people out there now that are going to be learning what this is, but then want to get more information about how it is that they can now, what are the next steps? Like, what's the next 1-2 steps that they do to maybe explore the possibility of holding their own for their own community's challenges in where they live?
Right. So when we were first introduced to this, it's a paradigm shift. There's different aspects of prayer. There's worship, there's praise, there's thanksgiving, there's petition, and but this is declaration. And our tendency is to go to God, to intercede. Lord, please bring, or repentance. And those all have their place. But when we come to an Ekklesia convocation, those things have already transpired in the leading up to. And this is a training ground. And I don't think there is a better way to learn but to actually participate in a convocation. Now, in one sense, you could do a mock one, just to get the sense of it, because when the first one I attended, we allowed some locals, which was, I believe, in Ohio. We allowed some of the locals to come because we wanted local governmental representation from the church, from the civil government. And the tendency was to intercede or to repent. And so again, it's a paradigm shift to begin to walk in this kind of a ministry or government mandate where we can stand on the word of God. We are declaring the word of God, and as a result, we make a decree. And so that's maybe a starting point for some training, some exposure. For some of you listeners that they may be aware of this. For others, this is brand new. Like, okay, can we do this? Is this biblical? So maybe it's just a discussion even around that.
Excellent. So you and I talked before we came on here today about an offer that you made to actually help people. Anyone who's on the briefing here today, who has a community, so perhaps there are pain points within your own community, challenges that you're experiencing, things that you want to address as government. Bill, you made an offer and said that you would help by offering just an exploratory first call. Like if somebody wanted to get on a Zoom call with you and just say, hey, so we've got this situation and that's tell us what you can offer people if they got on a call with you and just just to open up the conversation to having a convocation or experiencing one.
Right. So one of the things, not saying we'd start, but one of the things we would do is lay out kind of the format, what's required. Again, there is lead up to the actual convocation. So what a key thing is, you need to do research. How did these violations, according to Kingdom principles, come into our city, into our community, into our province? So were there any treaties that were broken? Is there a Freemasonry presence in the community? Things like this that are contrary to the biblical worldview. So there is a discovery or a research process that's required.
And you can get people started with this process leading up to them experiencing, as you said, either a mock convocation or just sort of kind of a dry run, just kind of to learn from, or you might be actually hosting or participating in a convocation somewhere else they could participate in and see one actually done as part of the learning experience as well. Did I get that right? I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes. So again, the first one I attended was in Ohio. There was a real issue there. And so we were invited in to participate, but it was also a learning process. Jennifer, who was on the call, she went to something in Florida. Again, a real case, a real matter, and she participated in that. So if there's something that somewhere gets established or a convocation held somewhere in Canada and some want to learn, it could be a place to participate, observe, and take it back to your community.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's just pray over this seed that's been sown again today here, Bill, because I'm excited that people will pick this up and run with it. Check the post-briefing notes, everybody. Thanks again, Bill, for your time today, and we'll keep in touch because what we're going to do here on the briefing is we're going to keep bringing you resources now related to Ekklesia convocations in briefings ahead. So next briefing and the one after that, look to the post-briefing notes. We may bring on some other people to talk about this as well. This is important. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Okay, well, we're coming around the home stretch, getting tight for time here. I want to make sure that we get it all in. So we're going to go straight to the next segment. This is another subject matter expert that I'm going to be introducing you to now. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us here today on the briefing. It's good to see you again. It's only been a little while since we last saw each other.
Yeah, I know, and it was just such a great time together. I really enjoyed that time, and then to meet you, and you know how sometimes you just meet with somebody and it's like there's just an instant connection.
Yeah,
that's what it felt. That's what it felt like with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So Mark and I actually were at a conference in Banff, Alberta, just not long ago. Had a chance to meet him for the first time. Started checking him out because you guys all know on the briefing what I do is I got my antenna up all the time, and I'm looking for those subject matter experts, those strategic resource providers, those people that you can call on if you have a need in a certain area. Well, Mark Gordon, as it turns out, is the author of a book called Relationship Matters. And so I started checking it out. And as it turns out, I don't know, he's got something we need here on the National Leadership Briefing. So Mark, tell you what, I'm going to leave it to you though, to introduce yourself. Tell a little bit about just what brought you to the place where you would write a book called Relationship Matters.
Yeah, you know, I was terrible at relationships. So when I was growing up, I had a very strict father, let's put it that way. And so as I was growing up, I really struggled with relating to people. I had a very much a fear of failure and a lot of fear that I grew up with. And so I just didn't know how to relate to people. And my wife and I met and we got married very young and because I'd gotten her pregnant. And so our first few years, I was steeped in addiction. I had a lot of addiction issues because of the pain of my childhood. And so what happened was we, a beautiful story. We were 1,000 kilometers apart and we're kind of separated. My wife was not going to join me in the city I got offered a job in. So I moved from the coast to Saskatchewan. And I was invited to a businessman's breakfast, and I went to this breakfast, and in the breakfast there was a testimony, and I gave my heart to the Lord. And at the same time, the same morning, the same half hour with the time difference, I guess my father had phoned her and talking to her about, you know, the stuff that was going on, and he led her to the Lord. So we came to Christ the same morning, 1,000 kilometers apart. And I said, I think I want to try this again. I believe God's going to change our lives, and he did. And so we got back together. We just had our 41st anniversary in June, and so it was that catalyst that led me into a healing journey, that I found out the value of relationships. And the big revelation was this, that God is a relational God. So he created us for relationship. And so there's three primary relationships we all have. One is with God, one is with ourselves, and one is with others. And often we don't want to talk about the one with ourselves, but the fact is we all have a relationship with ourselves. And if it's not healthy, if our relationship is off with God or it's off with ourselves, then it's going to be off with others. And so anyway, fast forward for years in the healing journey. Then I was in ministry. I was a pastor of a church here in Kelowna for 17 years. And then during COVID, which I call the great revealer, it started to reveal all the cracks that were under the surface, especially in the area of relationships. I saw people's families blowing apart because of the tension and the frustration. And so the Lord I had been teaching a workshop called Relationship Matters in recovery houses and in churches and different places. And a student came up to me just before COVID, and they said, I've never heard these principles before about relationships. Why don't you write a book? And of course, for years, I'd thought about writing a book. I had people tell me I should write a book. But this particular moment, this young lady said to me, don't you think if God gave you a jewel like this, that you should share it with the world? And it was like a conviction right into my heart. And so I started writing the book, and then COVID hit. And of course, everything came to a halt. So I had time, and I finished the book and released it in 2020, which was not a great time to do that. But actually, it turned out to be a great time because of what was going on. And so God really burdened me for relationships. Again, he just brought it afresh. A lot of our church ministry through the years, I did a lot of relationship development. I was a relational model church. So this isn't new, but I never actually collected all the thoughts about it and put it into one place like this. And so that's what led to the book release. Then all of a sudden, I'm getting calls. I'm doing workshops even more. I'm speaking even more. And it came to the place where I had to turn the church over to our team that I'd raised up and stepped into this full time in 2021. And it's been great. It's been great. I've seen a lot of relationships restored. And my main heart is that relationships in families and in organizations, specifically churches, because if there's an area of an attack that's going to come from the enemy, it's going to be to undermine relationships and to create offenses and whatnot. And so the book's very practical and principle based, but there's also story and my story that's entwined in it. So
yeah, no, it's fantastic book. And I'm so glad that the timing, like that the Lord's timing and the way that all came out,
right?
Because this is really good timing, as it turns out. I mean, really, when you think about it. Now, for those of you that the people that are on the briefing, if you haven't already connected as to why Mark Gordon is here today with what we teach, just remember the U training video. Okay. So you've all seen the U training video. If you haven't seen it yet, you've got to go on the NLB Essentials web tab, go onto the YouTube channel. That's one of those 4 essential videos that we encourage everyone to watch, that U training, because we talk about, of course, you being in relationship with the Lord, as Mark said, and also you utilizing your authorities. Remember the 4 little prongs that go on the side, your citizen authority, all that. But we also encourage you on the other side with that other arrow to get into relationship with people. And like Mark, and even like me, when I was younger, I wasn't very good at relationships either. Maybe you've got some challenges in getting into good relationships with, and there might be things holding you back. But if you're going to build an alliance of people or find allies and people to work with who share your views and values, and you want to advance the principles that undergird the 4 pillars, you're going to need to get into relationships. So this is why Mark is here for sure. Like one of the reasons anyway. I also like the guy a lot. But then Mark, tell us a little bit about the inside the book. You actually use pillars yourself. You actually have a pillar training style as well. And can you just give us just a flyover of the 5 pillars? There's 5 pillars.
Yeah, there's 5 pillars. So the book is written on the allegory of, if you build a house, you need 3 things. You need a healthy foundation, a strong framework, and a sturdy roof. If you have those 3 things, everything else is room division and decoration. But if you want a strong home or a strong organization, you also need to have a healthy foundation in your relationships, a strong framework. How are we going to relate to each other? And a sturdy roof. And that, I often tell people that sturdy roof, every shingle in the roof is a person that you've invited to speak into your life. And so they become a protection, a covering. Of course, Jesus is the ultimate covering, but he puts people in our lives to help us to stay safe in the storms of life. And so that's the premise. So the first section of the book is the 5 pillars of a healthy foundation that are in every healthy foundation of a relationship. The first pillar is trust. If we're going to have a healthy relationship, trust is a must. You're not going to be able to have a relationship without trust. And boy, has there ever been a lot of breach of trust. Now, I want to bring this into 2 areas. One is a trust between the people, the team that you're trying to build, the coalition you're trying to build, but also trust between the coalition and the community. If you're going to have impact in the community, we have to have healthy relationships. In Kelowna here, I sat on several committees in the city, Catch Coalition, and different committees that were wanting the well-being of children in our city. And I spent lots of time spending time building trust, relational trust with those people. And so the first pillar has got to be trust. The second is communication. We have to be able to communicate with each other. Now, not everybody's natural at that, but the good news is you can actually develop those skills. And so there's some very simple ways in that second pillar to build healthy communication styles. And then the third pillar, which is the central pillar, and probably my favorite, I just taught this workshop on the weekend in Alberta, and I told the people, this is my favorite one. It's authenticity. If you don't have authenticity, it's really difficult. It actually affects all the other pillars. If you don't have authenticity, then how can you be trusted? If I have to be something that I'm not to make somebody like me or love me, then who do they love? They don't, they don't necessarily love me because I haven't been authentic. But to be authentic, we need to know ourselves. I mean, a lot of people say, well, just be yourself. But if you don't know yourself, how can you possibly do that? So this is where the relationship with self comes in. And so I go through a process. How do you build that self-worth, Christ-centered, but how do you, it's believing what he says about us. It's believing who he says we are, instead of listening to the opinions of others. Maybe we've been hurt in relationships, and that, we've been told certain things about ourselves that we've chosen to believe, or the lies of the enemy that tries to convince us. Because if he can upset our relationship with ourselves, guess what? Everything else is affected. So people will ask me, well, what's the tipping point? How do you know, like, if you're, isn't that self-centered? No. If you're truly believing who God says you are, I believe it builds confidence, or what I call Godfidence. And what happens is it'll actually, there'll be 2 manifestations in your life. One is humility, and the other is gratitude. When those things start to happen, you know that you're in the right track. I'm starting to accept who God said I am, and that is giving me a confidence to walk out who he says I am. Now I can approach the other person with a much clearer vision. I can be authentic with them, and I can invite authenticity from them, and it really strengthens the relationship. The third pillar is honesty. Now, that might sound, where's integrity? Well, I believe integrity is found within the authenticity. But honesty, people don't want to talk about that one. Dishonesty is such a virus in our society today. Think about it in the sense of government, in the sense of the corporate world. There's so much dishonesty going on, but even within families, it's so easy. Those little white lies, they build up, but what they do is they undermine the trust pillar. And so when we have dishonesty, or even what I call, dishonesty is also omission. Not saying the things that we need to say is also damaging to relationships. And the third one, the last pillar, the fifth one, which is, I think, is a lost art in our society, and that is honor. That's a high esteem. How do we bring honor back into our families? How do we bring honor into our teams, into our churches, into our community? One of the things that I think is when we actually work these pillars, what happens very simply is that the outcome, the outflow of that is to be honorable and to honor others. And I think that it's a lost art. I think it's a proactive thing. We want to celebrate others. I remember our church one time, we invited first responders to a service, and we just simply had no agenda except to honor them and thank them for what their service and what they wanted to do. It made a huge difference in their lives. Some of them, they'd never been in a church before. They'd never actually experienced a worship service, but they were blown away by that honor. And so I think that honor. So I'm thinking of your teams. Imagine if those 5 pillars were active in your relationships. If you had those 5 pillars as values, I always tell people you got to get the values from the wall into the heart. Values written on a wall don't do any good for the organization, but when they're written in the heart, they change culture.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is get those things so deep in our hearts that we'll actually literally be able to bring a safe place for people to gather. So when we have these coalitions and we start to speak and we start to move forward into the community, we're going to be respected and honored because we approach it with honor. If we approach it from a fight level or a battle level and not a relational level, I say this all the time. There's a difference between positional authority and relational authority.
Right. So true.
You see it all the time, right? And you see it all the time.
Yeah, far more effective. Absolutely. Now that's markgordon.ca. That's your website. Now,
Yes.
Again, I'm going to make sure that all these links are in the post briefing notes. You know how I like to serve you these things up real easy on the briefing. So you're going to have those in the post briefing notes. However, in the meantime, make sure you make a mental note here. You've just been given a tool. Like there's a tool in your hands. And if you don't pick it up and use it, then it's not really going to do anything, accomplish anything. So if you are sitting there alone and you've got a call on your life, God wants you to do something, and you're alone and you don't have anybody working with you, you just might need this tool in your hand on how to build good relationships with people around you. Maybe if there's some barriers as Mark mentioned, inside yourself, things that are holding you back from building good relationships, you might be able to identify those. So I'd say go to the website, introduce yourself to Mark. And Mark, eventually you also do some training in person. Obviously, you actually go out and do coaching and training. And so once coalitions are up and running, if you've got a parents advisory council or a citizen action group within a church and you want some help building that relational equity, is that something you can do as well then, Mark?
Absolutely. I can do it on Zoom. I can do it in person.
Fantastic. Wow. I knew introducing you, Mark, to the family is a good idea. I'm looking forward to a long and fruitful relationship. And in the meantime, everybody, check those post-briefing notes because everything you'll need will be right there. Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, and now we are officially on the home stretch. And one final thing, a very important thing. We have a piece of legislation that's in the Senate right now. And you and I know we don't chase legislation through the House of Commons here on the National Leadership Briefing because we believe that you should look way ahead to see it coming. Now, having said that, we didn't see this coming. This thing was like in stealth mode throughout the House of Commons as it went through the process. Went pretty fast, but should have been on it earlier. So, my bad. I'll accept responsibility for this, but it is a piece of legislation we do need to know about, and we need to communicate our concerns to our elected representatives, our members of parliament, our federal members of parliament, and senators. So I'm going to be putting quick links in the post-briefing notes today so you can take the information that you're going to learn from this video that's coming up right now on Bill C-293 and you'll be able to very quickly click on it and send a quick email off and saying, no, please don't pass this. Don't pass this piece of legislation. So here are the details. The details are provided by Randy Crossan of Freedom's Advocates. So I thank you, Randy, for putting this together. It's very, very good, very well done, and very informative. And again, we'll have the video in the post-briefing notes, a copy of the video. We'll have a copy of the bill. You'll be able to read the bill. You'll be able to see it all. It'll be at your fingertips. That's what we like to do, is give you actionable items at your fingertips. And so you can exercise your citizen authority in Canada and your constituent authority when you talk to your local elected representatives. Okay, here is the video on Bill C-293.
Bill C-293, known as the Pandemic Prevention and Preparedness Act, has been labeled the Vegan Act by Sylvain Charlebois, a prominent food expert and professor at Dalhousie University. In a pointed newspaper editorial, he criticizes the legislation as an unprecedented governmental intrusion into individual dietary choices. Introduced by vegan Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine Smith, this bill has already passed through the House of Commons and is currently under consideration by the Senate. Detractors argue that it serves as a Trojan horse, offering vague and sweeping powers that basically grants the federal government unprecedented control over plants, animals, humans, and ecosystems during a declared pandemic, all under the guise of a One Health approach. The term One Health, a buzzword of the non-governmental World Health Organization, connects human health, animal health, and environmental health, with some critics arguing it promotes a global agenda that encompasses climate change, public health, one world governance, and animal rights. Bill C-293's primary stated goal is to prevent future pandemics, implying that such events are unavoidable and also inevitable. No definition of pandemic is supplied. However, once a pandemic is declared by the World Health Organization, the new legislation would potentially empower the federal government to implement extensive measures aimed at preventing not only an actual pandemic, but also the mere risk of a pandemic. The bill's mandates emphasize ongoing collaboration with provincial governments, which some experts warn is a red flag for jurisdictional conflicts between the federal and provincial governments. According to Professor Charlebois, the legislation could enable public health officials to shut down facilities deemed high risk, such as meatpacking plants, during pandemics, and even mandate that Canadians consume only vegetable proteins, or potentially even insect proteins, as in mandating the eating of bugs. He cautions that the government could disrupt meat supply chains and enforce dietary changes, potentially halting farming practices deemed risky for pandemic outbreaks. Animal rights organization World Animal Protection highlights that the act could help to curb commercial wildlife trade and factory farming to prevent future pandemics. As currently drafted, the bill does indeed grant the government the authority to phase out activities that may pose a pandemic risk and mandate the production of alternative proteins. C-293, as written, would grant the federal government authority to alter land use, regulate food consumption, and create a framework that could significantly impact the agricultural landscape, establishing a government-controlled economy aimed at minimizing any potential risk of a so-called pandemic. This legislation would enable the federal public health department to create direct agreements with the World Health Organization, encompassing measures such as surveillance, contact tracing, and various digital tools. Liberal MP Erskine Smith, defending the bill, states, "We aren't done with COVID." He insists, "We should leave no stone unturned in an effort to prevent the risk of and prepare for future pandemics." The bill raises alarming issues regarding government censorship and population control, reminiscent of the controlling and unconstitutional measures Canadians faced during the COVID pandemic, which dramatically infringed on personal and religious freedoms under the guise of protecting the population. We strongly encourage Canadians to reach out to their members of Parliament and senators if they oppose this bill. Let us know what you think by emailing us at info@freedomsadvocate.ca or sign up for news and updates at www.freedomsadvocate.ca.
Okay, so remember, check the post-briefing notes, actionable items there for you on speaking your voice, using your voice, gathering people around, remember, would be better. You can grab people, get them in a group, and everybody can send emails together. So build those relationships. I think you're getting that we're talking a lot about relationships today, and it's so important that you are reaching out and connecting with others and building your local coalitions. All right, hope that helps today. I'm so happy to serve. I'm just so happy to serve and looking forward already to the next time we get together. In the meantime, though, please know that I will be praying for you. I will be praying for your family, and I will continue to pray for this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.